G'day guys, and welcome back to your English Aussie. I have got some highly contentious and debatable talking points for you today. We're going to go through the buys, the sells, the holds for defenders, midfielders and forwards, and the best ones you want to look at for game week 21. In the defenders section, I have actually stopped and I don't have any tier 1 buys anymore. I think all the defenders round up quite nicely into this sort of tier 2 section, and I have gone through the best defenders in the order that I think over the next few game weeks I would be looking to get in your sides. For me, there's not any hugely standout defenders, and I think if you have any of these tier 2 buys, I would be looking to hold on to them and continue with them over the upcoming game weeks. If you're looking for some players to buy, these are the guys that I would be going for. And first up on my list, I do have Munoz of Crystal Palace. I think he's playing an extremely high role on the right hand side for Crystal Palace. They've got some fantastic fixtures coming up over the next few game weeks, and I think Munoz could be in for some attacking returns. At the moment, with clean sheets being so hard to predict in the league, and really the way to predict them is to look at the tactical matchups between the teams, I think the best thing for going forwards for a long period of time is to look at the defenders who can pick up some attacking returns for you and who have a nice fixture run with some defensive teams. Munoz has both of those for me, and did pick up some really nice positions in that Chelsea v Crystal Palace game. He was unlucky not to get an assist when Eze put one just wide of the post. Second up on this tier 2 buy list is Lewis Hall. Again, for me, he's someone who's getting into some superb attacking positions for Newcastle. His link-up play with Anthony Gordon up that left-hand side has been really nice for Newcastle. He's also on set pieces and corners, and looks a really nice buy. Newcastle have managed to keep a few clean sheets in the last few weeks as well, and are looking like a team in form at the moment. So for me, him and Munoz are probably the top 2 options to be looking at. After that, third on my list is Robinson. He was a little bit higher until I watched the Fulham game this week. I did think that they did look a little bit defensively shaky, more so than they have done this season, and therefore Robinson does come in third on my list. He is also playing quite a high role for Fulham and does link up nicely with Iwobi down that left-hand side. I do think most of the sort of attacking play from the fullbacks does come from the left-hand side and Robinson/Iwobi. That is where Fulham's attacks tend to be started rather than the Castagna side. However, I do have Castagna as an option also in this tier 2 buy list in case you can't afford Robinson. However, he would be my preferred option, and I think definitely worth the 0.7 million more if you can stretch to him. Next up on the list is Milenkovic of Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest just being one of the most secure defensive teams at the moment. Obviously sitting there up in the top 4 in the Champions League spots at the moment. Murillo being back for them as well means that Milenkovic and Murillo's centre-back pairing really shows a lot of physical presence for Nottingham Forest, and also a really nice way of how they play out quickly from the back with those diagonal balls out to their wing-backs or full-backs or wingers. I also have Ola Aina here. I do think that he's probably a secondary option to Milenkovic. Milenkovic does actually have more attacking threat off the sort of corners, unless Nottingham Forest play in their 3-4-3 formation, which they have adopted at times this season, allowing Aina to push on as a wing-back. I do think Nottingham Forest are a lot more defensively solid, however, in their 4-5-1 slash 4-4-2 formations that they have played. 4-5-1 slash 4-3-3 formations that they have played, and therefore I think Milenkovic is the best option for them. After that, I do have Trent Alexander-Arnold on there. I do think that over the next couple of game weeks for Liverpool, they have Nottingham Forest and Brentford. He wouldn't be my priority transfer in. I think those are not the easiest fixtures for Liverpool. From a defensive standpoint and an attacking standpoint, Nottingham Forest is not the easiest game for Liverpool. Also, more so from the defensive standpoint, Brentford is quite a difficult game. I would, however, look to be getting Trent Alexander-Arnold in for game week 23 against Ipswich ahead of the 24/25 double game week that Liverpool will have. So as the weeks tick by, he will slide up this tier 2 buy list for me. Notably, Konate came back for Liverpool this week. He is at 5.1 million. He is someone I'm definitely interested in as a potential option to go for instead of Trent Alexander-Arnold, or also with Trent Alexander-Arnold towards that Liverpool double game week. At 5.1 million, it could be a really nice way into that Liverpool lineup. Gabriel still sits here on the list for me, mostly due to his goal threat and Arsenal's threat from set pieces. They are sort of a little bit set piece merchanty at this time. They are struggling from open play, and Gabriel is a real huge threat from those set pieces. He is the one that they're aiming for. He's the one who really attacks those corners with venom, and looks like he could get on the end of a lot of them. If Arsenal defence can sort of get themselves together a little bit, they did lack a bit of composure this week in their game against Brighton. I do think they will be able to pull together some clean sheets. However, their fixtures are not looking so nice over the upcoming game weeks, over the next sort of 3-4 game weeks for Arsenal, with Tottenham, Villa, Wolves and Manchester City on the horizon. So for me, he does slide down a little bit in this list. Finally on this list, maybe someone that you might not be expecting is Cucurella. He likes to drink Estrella and throw his Puma shoes in the bin. I think if you're looking to move into that Chelsea lineup, he is the best option. Malo Gusto is frequently rotated. When Lavia comes back, there will be the potential for Caicedo to slot in at right back and invert into that defensive midfield role alongside Lavia in attack. Colwill does not have the attacking threat that Cucurella does. He does often invert from that left back role into the 8 or the 10, and has been popping up in the box with some opportunities so far. So he, for me, rounds out my tier 2 buy list, and those are the defenders that I would be looking for at the moment in your team. I think the best sort of structure for the defence at the moment is to go with 4 defenders and 1 sort of cheap 3.94 million defender, and that does allow you to sort of nicely spend your money across the rest of the team. In the sell side, we do have Pedro Porro. Tottenham defence looking all sorts out of sort at the moment, obviously missing tons of key players, so for me he is a sell still. Alongside him is Rico Lewis and Josko Gvardiol of Manchester City. Manchester City are still looking superbly defensively fragile at the moment. They're backing off all the runners. They're looking like they're struggling in transition. Their defensive midfielders have been getting caught far too high up the pitch. And I did talk about that in my reaction live stream on the sort of tactical side of Man City and why they are suffering defensively this year. So go and have a listen to that if you haven't heard it yet. I will stick a link to it up above or down below in the links. So go and give that a view if you're interested in the sort of tactical commentary on this week's games. After that, I've got Ryan Aït-Nouri. I think his time is up. Wolves' nice fixture run has ended, and they do have some really difficult fixtures coming up. Their next 5 fixtures are Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal, Villa and Liverpool, before they start to get a little bit better in about 28. So for me, Ryan Aït-Nouri is a sell at the moment. Finally on this list is Milos Kerkez, maybe an unusual one after his nice 12-point haul this week. However, that was the end of Bournemouth's nice fixture run. They do now play Chelsea, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest and Liverpool over the next 4 games. And with some of these other players with much nicer fixtures and the potential for attacking returns in that tier 2 buy list, I think Kerkez is someone you can move on from at the moment. He is at the bottom of my sell list. I do think if you have other pressing issues in your team, you can afford potentially to hold on to him and maybe rotate him with your other defenders. In the hold section, I have Jurrien Timber. Obviously, I think Gabriel is a better option. Arsenal don't have the greatest fixture run at the moment. but I'm sure there are other more pressing matters in your team. For me, at the moment, I would hold him. However, if you are looking to attack some upside and you don't have any particular transfers, maybe quite a few saved up, you could potentially look to move on Timber. Moving on to the midfielders, and in that tier 1 buy section, we'll quickly skip through this. We do have Mo Salah and Cole Palmer. If you don't have them, buy them. Into the tier 2 buy section, and this is where it maybe does get a little bit contentious and debatable. G'day guys, this is your English Aussie. Just a quick shout out. If you have been enjoying this content, please subscribe to the channel, give this video a like. Just a small channel trying to grow at the moment, and we're hoping to pull in a few more subscribers and get that videos out to some more people. Also, if you can watch these videos to the end, that really does help the YouTube algorithm. I really do appreciate you guys that watch these videos. Thanks very much guys. Let's get back to the video. I've gone for some really interesting options this week, and right at the top of my list is MBEUMO. I think he is the #1 midfielder to be bringing in at the moment. And if I flick you over to my own attacking fixture difficulty rating that I have created, I do my own FDR ratings based off how teams are performing at the moment, how many goals they've conceded so far this season, what their defence is looking like. I think the only one that you can look at on here and say is probably a bit of an easier fixture is Manchester City. I have left them as orange, just as someone to sort of keep an eye on for myself when I'm looking at these fixtures. If you do look at these Brentford attacking fixtures over the next few weeks from an attacking standpoint, I think Manchester City is a really fantastic game for MBEUMO next week. He is actually someone I am thinking about captaining in game week 21 against Manchester City, a team that are really poor defensively in transition, with Brentford who are magical in transition, super fast, commit a lot of players forward. And MBEUMO could be someone that could really hurt them. After that, they do have Liverpool, but then after that, they have a really nice bunch of fixtures with Palace, Tottenham, West Ham, Leicester, Everton, Villa, and Bournemouth after that. I think MBEUMO for me is my #1 option in that midfield area at the moment. Next up on this list is again Bruno Fernandes, potentially another contentious option. However, Bruno does have a really nice fixture run for Man United now. They do have Southampton, Brighton, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, Everton and Ipswich coming up over the next few fixtures. That is a really nice fixture run for Man United, and Bruno could be someone who could look to really exploit that. I thought United were excellent against Liverpool. They didn't just sit back, they were able to go forwards, cause Liverpool some problems defensively, and it does show that they do have that ability. It's whether they can be consistent. So for me, if they can keep that consistency, Bruno Fernandes could be a really nice differential option to be heading into the next few game weeks with. Also on penalties for Man United, him and MBEUMO both, and that is another reason why they are right at the top of my list for midfielders. After that, and on this tier 2 buy list, is Anthony Gordon of Newcastle. Obviously been in great form for Newcastle. Newcastle themselves have been in fantastic form. He's been magnificent down that left-hand side, linking up nicely with Hall, linking up nicely with Isak, and obviously a real counter-attacking threat for Newcastle, who have shown magnificent energy and press and forwards, progressive running and progressive passing to be counter-attacking and attacking with such pace over the last few weeks. And that is something, if you do listen to my tactical analysis that I go through for each of the teams and games, is something that's been really important in the Premier League this year. And a lot of the teams that you do see at the top of the league have a lot of midfield running in them. Liverpool, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, Newcastle, all of these teams have a lot of energy and press in the midfield. And some of the teams that have struggled really have been teams that are a little bit slower in that midfield. Manchester City's, the Man United's without Mainu and Ugarte, West Ham's, those sort of teams who are a little bit slower in those midfield have struggled this season. Next up on my list is Savio for Manchester City. As he's now switched out to that left wing, this is again something I've talked about in my tactical analysis. I think Man City, he's much more dangerous for them. Man City are at their best when their wingers are getting to the byline or inside the 18-yard box. Think of the days they had Sterling and Mahrez and they were right inside those 18-yard boxes, cutting balls back to the arriving Fodens and De Bruynes or crossing the ball into Haaland, who is a monster in the box to be able to get on the end of that. Savinho switch to the left wing has really been able to open up that space instead of now coming inside and closing off the space to the Fodens and the De Bruynes and allowing those box midfields that teams have been playing against Man City to close off the space. He's been able to go down the wing, get to the byline and put those crosses into Haaland, as well as being able to get on his left foot and hit some shots in. I think he's a really nice option for Man City. Their fixtures are not fantastic. They've got a couple left with Brentford and Ipswich where they could score some goals. After that, they then run into Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle and Liverpool. But if you are looking for a bit of a differential and you want to back that Man City attack, Savinho at 6.5 million is really nice. Finally on my list of tier 2 buys is Morgan Rogers. He's back from suspension this week and I think he's just such a fantastic option. Aston Villa have a fantastic fixture run coming up. They have Everton and Arsenal in the next 2 weeks before West Ham, Wolves, Ipswich, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Brentford after that. And Morgan Rogers is really the key to that sort of defensive running and transition in the Aston Villa team. At 5.5 million, he's really nice to have as that sort of fifth midfielder budget price point as well. And he plays almost 90 minutes every game for Aston Villa. So for me, at that price point, he is the #1 pick and he makes it into my tier 2 buys. In the tier 3 buys which we've made this week, because I think there are a lot of midfield options and I wanted to clearly categorise who I thought were the best options and the order of the way I would pick them, we have now done a tier 3 buy list as well. For those of you that potentially have these options already, I would probably look to keep them unless you're looking to go and attack some bigger upsides with some of the tier 2 buys. These are the guys I've got, and that's Phil Foden of Manchester City. Obviously on the right wing takes a little bit away from him, but he is able to sort of get into those half spaces, get into the 18-yard box and be a little bit creative. I think from a goal threat, obviously his goal was a little bit lucky the way it worked out for Man City, West Ham giving the ball away this week. So for his goal threat may be slightly reduced, but from an assist perspective, it looks like he could pick up some for Man City over the next 2 weeks. After that, their fixture run, as we mentioned, gets a little bit less nice. Murphy of Newcastle, I think, is sort of a secondary pick over Anthony Gordon, but if you can't afford an Anthony Gordon, I think Murphy is equally as nice a pick for Newcastle at a slightly lower price point. I think his minutes are just a little bit less than Gordon, which makes him a bit less attractive. Ismail Assar comes on here for Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, for me, don't score enough goals for him to be in the tier 2 buy section, but they do have a nice fixture run, and he is probably, of him and Eze, the most goal threat. I think Eze is a little bit more creative, a little bit deeper, arrives later in the box, whereas Sarr is the one who runs past Mateta and looks to get in there, and that's why he makes it onto the tier 3 list. Next up is Enzo Fernandez. Again, a little bit more of an assist threat for me, and obviously the 5 points for a goal for a midfielder puts those guys with the goal threats a little bit higher. Enzo does have a little bit of goal threat, getting into the box, getting into those more attacking positions. With Lavia coming back, if Caicedo then does get into that right back role, that does give Enzo a little bit more license to invert into those attacking midfield roles. I do think, to be honest, he is doing that already for Chelsea, even with him and Caicedo playing in that defensive midfield role. But again, something I talk about in my tactical analysis, and I talk quite in depth about Chelsea and the different tactical setups that Maresca's done. For me, a really nice move at that 5.1 million, good fixtures, an attacking team that score a lot of goals. Not quite in the last few weeks, but Enzo Fernandez still makes it onto my tier 3 buy list. Next up on here is Dejan Kulusevski. For Tottenham, for me, he's the only one that has that sort of consistent minutes. They obviously are a team who do score a lot of goals, and in the midfield, I think Kulusevski is that driving force for Tottenham. He's getting into all of those pockets of space. For me, the only thing letting them down is their fixtures and their consistency. Next up, another contentious one that maybe is not being talked about is Anthony Elanga of Nottingham Forest. He is playing that sort of right wing role for them. Nottingham Forest have a super counter-attacking play. They have some great progressive passes, some progressive carries, and that is the Morgan Gibbs-White, the Anthony Elanga getting up the field really quickly. Elanga scoring in 4 of his last 5 outings, or getting a return. Excuse me, which is really nice, and he is in some excellent form at the moment for Nottingham Forest. Again, just a bit lower on this list due to the fact that Nottingham Forest don't score too many goals, and the goal scorers generally are Chris Wood and Chris Wood and Chris Wood. So Elanga makes it on the list for me, but a little bit further down, but could be a nice differential at that 5.2 price point. Onto the sells and holds, we do have Antoine Semenyo. I think Bournemouth's fixture run has run dry for the next 4 games. He is a sell for me, not been in the most fantastic form, has been missing a few chances. Kaoru Mitoma of Brighton, Hertzler's been really tinkering with that team at the moment, and with Welbeck out, they just don't look like the same sort of attacking, cutting-edge threat that they had done before. Mitoma for me, although I love him as a player, has been rotated a little bit and just is someone that I'd look to be moving out of their team for the better options on the previous page. Bukayo Saka, obviously we talked about, is injured for a while and will be out and is a sell. You should use his funds and move him onwards at the moment. The same goes for Jared Bowen. He has fractured his foot and will be out for a while. Despite what Lopetegui says in his press conferences, he is basically a Mikel Arteta, and you can't trust a word that comes out of his mouth. After that is James Maddison and Brennan Johnson of Spurs. For me, they are being rotated together in that Spurs team, and their non-consistent minutes, along with Spurs' inconsistent performances, mean that they just can't make it into a team where I'm looking for consistent minutes in that midfield. There are some really nice options for midfielders, so for me, these guys are just not the one. Having said that, I do think they're good players, can get high returns, but yeah, for me, are sells. In the hodl or hold section, we do have Ahmad of Manchester United. At that price point, he is okay to be holding. For me, Manchester United just haven't shown that consistency of yet. Coming out of that Liverpool game, he would be a hold for me because of their good fixtures. But Man United really need to show that consistency over the next few games. Otherwise, he might slide into the sell category. Next up is Iwobi. For me, he's not been performing fantastically in the last few games. He has been getting chances, but for me, Iwobi's finishing is just not fantastic, to be honest, and hasn't managed a return in his last sort of 4 games. He is a hold just due to Fulham's great fixture runs and due to the fact that statistically and really from the way that Fulham play, he has been getting into those positional areas where he could score goals, but just hasn't been putting them away yet. In the forward line, we do have one tier 1 buy. That is Alexander Isak. He is by far and away the best striker at the moment, and the only guy I would be looking at in that forward line. In the tier 2 section, we do have another controversial pick. It is Yohan Wissa as my next best striker at the moment. I think if you don't have Brian MBEUMO, he is the one that you have to be going for. Brentford have such a fantastic run at the moment coming up. They have, after this Man City game, they have Liverpool and then Palace, Tottenham, West Ham and Leicester. I think is a really nice bunch of fixtures for Brentford coming up. And Wissa at the spearhead of that attack has such fantastic footballing IQ, just gets into such magnificent positions for Brentford. And he's really somebody that I would look to be moving into over the next few weeks. Next up on the list is Nicholas Jackson. For me, he's still getting into great positions for Chelsea. Unfortunately, his finishing has just been really poor over the last couple of weeks. But their chances are there in a Chelsea team who do create a lot of chances. His positional play, however, has been improving more and more and more as the season has been going on. His link up with Palmer has been exceptional. And he does find himself on the end of those chances. He was finishing a lot better earlier in the season, and for me, I think he's still a really nice forward option if you do have the money for him. After that, we've got the magic man himself, Chris Wood. He's someone that, although the fixtures are reasonable and the statistics are just not there whatsoever for him, in the way that Nottingham Forest set up tactically, he is the end product of all of their attacks. That's what they're looking for. Often, even when they're on those counter-attacks, Chris Wood trails the play and is someone that can come in and finish off the play at the end. His finishing's been fantastic for Nottingham Forest, and obviously a key part of how they've got to where they are at the moment. Finally, in the Tier 2 buys is Gabriel Jesus. For me, at the moment, Arsenal are not looking very good from open play over the last few games since they've lost Saka. Even really when Saka was in that side, they were struggling a little bit from open play and were heavily reliant on him. Jesus, for me, has been obviously in fantastic form for them, and could be a nice differential if Arsenal do manage to score some goals and get a little bit more threat from open play. However, at the bottom of that Tier 2 buy list, as he could be someone who moves out of there in the future, depending on Arsenal's form. In the sell category, we do have Danny Welbeck. Who knows when he's back for Brighton? I'm not so sure it is actually an injury, and I think it might be some personal problems, but I don't want to cause too many rumours on that Brighton side. I think he is absolutely fantastic for Brighton, such a key part of their team. Without him, they really have been struggling, but at the moment, with no return date set, he is a sell for me. Next up, and finally in the sell portion, is Evan Nilsson. For me, he's been not in very good form whatsoever. I think almost no or one return in his last 8 games or so. The fixtures have gone away here for Bournemouth, and for me, it's just a sell for some better options. In the hold section, we do have João Pedro. I think just at that price point, if you're not willing to go up to a Wissa, he could be someone that you hold as that third forward and frequently bench if you have a really strong 5-person midfield. He could be someone that you're looking to bench frequently at the moment. I think the Brighton fixtures are sort of mediocre after this Ipswich game in 21. So João Pedro is a hold for me at the moment, but depending on where you're looking to go in the future, could be a sell to a budget, a sort of a 4.5 mil forward if that's the way you want to go, or move up to maybe a Wissa, a Wood, or a Jesus. Jimenez as well is a hold for me at the moment. Same for João Pedro. Nice at that sort of budget option. Could be someone that you bench frequently. Fulham have a nice fixture run. He is on penalties for them. Obviously penalty merchant it like this week for Fulham in their game with 2 penalties. He is a hold for me, but definitely someone that's on that sort of edge and watch list to be moving on in the future. Matheus Cunha, I think definitely could still be a hold. I think he's a wait and see whether he's fit this week for Wolves. I'd like to give him sort of this 1 week against Newcastle, see how Wolves perform against one of the more difficult teams with their new manager. If they are struggling, he is somebody that will move into that sell category from next week. He could also move into the sell if he isn't fit. He obviously picked up a knock a couple of games ago and served his 1-match ban last week. Let's see if he'll be available. Stay tuned. I will do, of course, all of the press conferences and the team news in the deadline stream this week, or next week even, that will show whether Cunha is available. Finally, second last is Erling Haaland. For me, if you've got him in your team, he's not someone that I would personally go for, and it doesn't work for the way I personally structure my team. However, if you've got him in your team, this is obviously something that you're definitely looking to do. You're looking to target that Erling Haaland upside. You should be looking to captain him in the upcoming couple of game weeks against Brentford and Ipswich. He's someone that I'd definitely hold on to for the next 2 games and the rest of this nice Manchester City fixture run. Finally on the list, Ollie Watkins. For me, he's just a hold for Aston Villa just for this week against Everton. Let's see if he starts or if John Duran gets brought back into the team. Duran will serve the last game of his suspension in the Cup for Aston Villa, and then I believe he's back for 21 against Everton, if I'm not mistaken, otherwise back for 22 against Arsenal. For me, Watkins might be someone who might make way in 22 when Villa play against Arsenal, so I'd definitely keep an eye out for that one. Guys, if you have been watching and you do enjoy this content, please subscribe to the channel, like this video. I am a small channel just trying to grow at the moment, and I really appreciate all of you guys that have watched so far. If you can watch these videos to the end, it really does help the YouTube algorithm. Even if you just stick it on in the background or leave it running, I don't even mind. But it would be good if you can watch through this content. If you are enjoying it, please give a subscribe, like the channel. I really appreciate all of you guys. Good luck next game week. I'm currently sitting on 35k, and let's hope for another green arrow and a push in game week 21 for all of you guys following. Thanks very much. This has been your English Aussie. Have a great week, guys. I'll catch you later.